Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exhilarating edition of the Pro Wrestling Podcast with Burt. I am your host, Burt. Alright, plenty to talk about in the wrestling world this week. I'll go ahead and start off by telling you guys, like I told you last time on the first episode of the podcast, about Wrestling with Death, the WGN America series that came out last Tuesday. I made it through 5 minutes of the show before I turned it off. And I really wanted to give it a chance, but I just couldn't. I got 5 minutes into it, there's a corpse laying on the table, and I am out. Deleted from the DVR, never to watch again, more than likely. I can't believe there's a market for that kind of thing. I'll be seriously surprised if they pick it up for a second season. That's right up there on the list of things that I don't want to watch. Probably just slightly ahead of a live enema. So yeah, I won't be watching that anymore. I'll get my fix on Wrestling and Death from old episodes of The Funeral Parlor with Paul Bearer and The Undertaker on WWE Network. I think that'll serve me a lot better. So we won't be talking about that today, but there's plenty of things we will be talking about. And let's go ahead and kickstart it by talking about Lucha Underground on El Rey Network. Another great episode this Wednesday night. They started out with some new luchas. It was a 4-way elimination match, and they introduced their Cage character that they've been doing the vignettes for. It was Cage against Aerostar, against Argenis, against Angelico. And you'll have to forgive my Spanish on these names if I'm not pronouncing them right. But it was a really solid 4-way match, and they did their point of getting Cage over. He looks like a beast, all jacked up, very big guy. And we would see more of him later, but I'll get to that in a moment. Cage wins the match. Very good match. Probably about 10-minute match. Really enjoyed it. I thought Angelico actually was a breakout star in that match. If you haven't watched Lucha Underground, I'll tell you again, you've got to check it out on Wednesday nights on the El Rey Network, because it's a great wrestling show. It's like a breath of fresh air. So in the second segment, Chavo Guerrero comes out, and there's a couple chairs in the ring. He calls out Blue Demon Jr. to the ring and says he wants to apologize to him. And that's kind of shady from the get-go, right? I mean, we as wrestling fans know that usually when someone wants to apologize to someone, nothing good comes from it. Blue Demon Jr. comes out to the ring. They sit down. Chavo puts his hand on Blue Demon's knee as he's apologizing to him, and this makes Blue Demon visibly uncomfortable as he looks around at all the fans in the temple. And it's not long before we find out that the thing Chavo wants to apologize for is that he didn't rip off Blue Demon's mask and leave him with a new mask of his own blood. So Chavo gets up and he has his brass knuckles on his hands and he's ready to lay into Blue Demon Jr. But Blue Demon Jr., he's a vet. He knows better. So he gets the best of Chavo, hits him with a couple chair shots. Pretty interesting segment. I think those guys are going to have quite a rivalry. That leads us to the next segment. We have a match between King Cuerno and Drago, and apparently it's a no disqualification match because there was a table involved, and this match didn't last all that long, but it was very intense. King Cuerno sets up a table outside the ring, and every time we see tables, we know something bad's going to happen, right? So a little bit farther into the match, King Cuerno actually gets knocked onto the table that he set up himself. How many times do we see that? So Drago runs up the stairs, gets on top of Dario Cueto's roof, and does a huge splash off the top of the roof. And they both go through the table. Boom, double count out. Nobody's getting up. Nobody's rolling into the ring on 9. This is a double count out because it was a serious spot and it was presented that way. And I thought that was amazing. Moving right along to the last segment, we had a match for the title between Phoenix and Prince Puma. And these two have had some really great encounters over the past few weeks on Lucha Underground. This was just an excellent match. Lots of innovative moves. Just a really solid, good lucha match. Prince Puma picks up the win on this match. He got by Phoenix. But As he was celebrating, here comes Cage from the first match. I told you we would get back into this. And Cage attacks Prince Puma, leaves him laying in the center of the ring. Got to think that there's going to be a build-up there to some kind of title match further down the road. And, just again, Lucha Underground is just a breath of fresh air. It's a 1-hour program. So many great matches in 1 hour. Don't spend a lot of time cutting promos, don't spend a lot of time doing replays or anything like that. It's just an action-packed lucha style of wrestling from the time it comes on till the time it goes off, and it always leaves you wanting more, which in a world of 3-hour wrestling shows is something that's very hard to do. I think 1 hour is the perfect length for a wrestling show. I wish every wrestling show would be an hour. Definitely no more than an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours tops. 3 hours is just brutal. It's hard to keep anyone's attention span for a 3-hour program, no matter how good it is. And when it's really not as good as it has been in the past, then you're really fighting an uphill battle. So that's one of my favorite things about Lucha Underground is just the 1 hour time slot on El Rey Network. I'll plug it again, Lucha Underground every Wednesday, El Rey Network. Check it out. You've got to check this wrestling program out. If you like professional wrestling, you will love this. And speaking of 1 hour wrestling programs that you'll love, NXT this week really delivered. We started out with a match between Tyson Kidd and Finn Balor. I love Finn Balor's music and entrance. It just really sets the tone for the match. And what a great match it was. I'm really enjoying Tyson Kidd as a heel. I wonder why Alex Riley put him over. It's like Jim Ross always says, heels need to have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. So when he's sitting out there talking about how much respect he has for him, it doesn't really do what I feel like is a good job of getting him over as a heel. That being said, they still had a really great match and Finn Balor picked up the win. Then we would see Baron Corbin in a match against Bull Dempsey. And the NXT entrances just really seem to be cooler than some of the WWE entrances these days. Baron Corbin has a really cool entrance. I also kind of enjoyed the pre-match promo from Bull Dempsey. I think it's really cool that he's not your typical looking WWE superstar. He's got an old school look, and I think that could be one thing that could really work out for him in the future. It was pretty interesting that they let Corbin win so quickly, but they're really building him up, it seems like. He's got a great look, and I really think he's going to be able to do some things. Up next, we had the Tag Team Diva match between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch versus Charlotte and Natalya, or Natty Neidhart. It was a really solid match for a Tag Team Divas match. And Becky Lynch, one hot mamacita, as the late Eddie Guerrero might say. Was really impressed with the match. I've been a big fan of Charlotte's ever since the first time I saw her and Natalya wrestle with Ric Flair and Bret Hart in each other's respective corners. I think these NXT divas, they are really going to be something when they get called up to the WWE's main roster and are given the time to really put on a good match, on a Raw or on a pay-per-view. I think they can really shine in that environment, so I'm looking forward to that. Then we've got to talk about the main event between Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville, because those guys just have such great chemistry together. It's just amazing. They really told a great story in this match, and I enjoyed how much Sami was selling his injuries. Some people have forgotten the art of selling these days. You've got to slow it down and really sell your injuries, and it was good to see that. They just tore the house down, and then Sami Zayn retains the NXT title, and then the evil Kevin Owens comes down to attack him again. So I can definitely see some foreshadowing there. I predict that at the next NXT TakeOver, we're going to see a match between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for the NXT Championship. You heard it here first. Again, I really just can't say enough about how much I feel that the 1 hour shows flow better than the 2 hour and 3 hour shows. It just seems like they're more action-packed. Not a lot of appetizers, just a well-cooked entree. I really think Triple H has done a wonderful job down at NXT and the Performance Center, and I'm looking forward to the future of WWE because they're really getting some guys that can go down there. SmackDown moved back to Thursdays this past week, And I thought it was a pretty good show to be the first one back. It wasn't as stacked as it could have been, I didn't think. The fact alone that Daniel Bryan made his in-ring return, that was a big watching point. They started out, actually with that Daniel Bryan promo, and the first match with Kane and Daniel Bryan. That was a pretty good match. Ended in a disqualification, as I figured it might, when everyone in the Authority pretty much was around the ringside. Had a mixed tag match between The Miz, Mizdow, and Alicia Fox against the Usos with Naomi. The Miz picked up the win by pushing Mizdow into one of the Usos, and that's just kind of furthering the tension between The Miz and Mizdow. But I'm expecting if they're in the Royal Rumble match that when Miz gets eliminated, Damien Mizdow is going to eliminate himself. You heard it here first. That's my prediction. Easily the highlight of the show for me was the Paul Heyman promo where Seth Rollins came out and they sparred back and forth verbally. Both of those guys are just amazing on the mic, amazing heels. It was just an epic promo, and it really sets the tone for what's going to happen at the Royal Rumble in that three-way match with John Cena. It was a nice little piece of foreshadowing how Paul Heyman escaped by telling Rollins that he may be the one to help Brock Lesnar protect the future of the WWE when that time comes, when the future takes over. That's definitely the match at the Royal Rumble that has me the most intrigued, other than the Rumble match itself. Then we had a non-title Divas match between Natalya and Nikki Bella, and they actually let Natty go over when Paige slapped Nikki across the face. And it kind of makes me wonder why they would book Nikki to look so weak. She hasn't really been a dominating Divas champion. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of depth and storyline involving the Divas. I know they're trying to do the thing with Tyson Kidd and Natalya, but it just seems kind of scatterbrained at best. We had a rematch between Sin Cara and Bad News Barrett. I like the finish on that match when Sin Cara did the rebound off the ropes and Bad News Barrett hit him with a bullhammer. It looked really, really good. I thought that was a pretty cool little piece of business. Then the main event saw a six-man tag between Rollins, The Big Show, and Kane versus Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Daniel Bryan. And it was a pretty solid match, and I think it did a good job of getting everybody in the match over. The babyfaces picked up the win on that one. And then Triple H comes out and says that next week on SmackDown, we're having a rematch between Daniel Bryan and Kane. And if Daniel Bryan loses that match, he loses his opportunity to be in the Royal Rumble match, which would also mean that there's no way he could win it and no way he could main event WrestleMania for the second year in a row. So they've set up a little intriguing plot line there for next Thursday's edition of SmackDown to get us to tune in. But obviously Daniel Bryan will be in the Royal Rumble. I think they learned their lesson on that last year. I have some Ring of Honor results for you guys this week. In the first match, Roderick Strong goes over Mark Briscoe. In the second match, which was the first match of the Top Prospect Tournament, Will Ferreira goes over Jay Diesel. And in the main event, it was Hanson versus Tommaso Ciampa versus Michael Elgin to determine the new number one contender for Jay Briscoe's title. This match ended in a no contest as the referee got knocked down and all hell broke loose. I don't get Ring of Honor on television in my area, and I'm sure a lot of you don't either, but the good news is you can go to rohwrestling.com. They put the videos up on Monday for premium members and Thursday for all members. This means all of us free watchers will get to see Alberto Del Rio, now known as Alberto El Patron, make his ROH debut Thursday. Moving right along, let's talk about some TNA Impact Wrestling results from this past Friday night. The show opened with a promo from MVP's new group, the Beatdown Clan. Kurt Angle comes out, and this leads to a match between Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, in which Samoa Joe makes Kurt Angle tap out. The best match of the night, in my opinion, was the Wolves against the Hardy Boys. It was a really great match, and I thought both teams did a great job. The Hardys went on to win that match and become the number one contenders against the Revolution for the tag team titles. Next, we had Bobby Roode looking to get even with Eric Young from last week's fiasco, but unfortunately Bobby Roode fell to Eric Young and a piledriver on a steel chair. We then had a tag team knockouts match between Brooke and Taryn versus the Beautiful People, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. The Beautiful People picked up the win on this one, and then the lights go out, and here is Awesome Kong again, taking it to the Beautiful People. But then comes Havoc, and we get another stare down before officials pull them apart. It's looking like those two are going to have a rivalry. Austin Aries and Low Ki would have a rematch for the X Division Championship. Low Ki would regain the title thanks to interference from the Beatdown Clan. In the closing segments of the show, the Beatdown Clan puts a beatdown on Bobby Lashley, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and they stole his title. This Friday night, we've been promised a street fight between Bobby Lashley and MVP, and also the return of the Feast or Fired match. This was a pretty decent episode of Impact Wrestling. Unfortunately, as far as innovations that would change the wrestling world forever that we've been hearing rumors of, if they were there, I must have blinked and missed it, because it just felt like TNA wrestling to me. If you'd like to make this podcast more interesting, listen to this episode again and take a shot of your favorite liquor every time I say beatdown in that TNA review. Don't try that when someone on a wrestling program uses a super kick though, or you will surely die. Then you could potentially end up on that program wrestling with death, and we don't want that, do we? I do think that the super kick is the most overused move in professional wrestling these days. What do you guys think? Have you noticed that? Anyway, moving right along. The best wrestling show this week was clearly WWE Raw, leading into the Royal Rumble. It started out great with a promo from Brock, Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, John Cena, Triple H, and Stephanie, and everybody in it knocked it out of the park. Just a great promo, really set the tone for the triple threat match at the Royal Rumble. It's really going to be interesting to see which way this goes. Then we had a really great match between Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt, and Daniel Bryan took some really stiff bumps in this match, so he's back. He's intense, and it was a great match. Kane interferes, Bray Wyatt wins. Just an excellent match. Then we had a funny backstage segment with the Clique, and Damien Sandow, or Damien Mizdow, actually came out dressed up as X-Pac, and that was pretty entertaining. It's always good to see the Clique back on camera together. They've just got chemistry. We then saw a Royal Rumble Legends panel involving Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, and Ric Flair. It was really good to see those guys in the ring discussing their thoughts until Big Show came out and knocked out Ric Flair. How do you knock out Ric Flair? He's a legend. This brought Roman Reigns out, and Roman Reigns took care of the big nasty Big Show. I think this is the best way they can use Roman Reigns without exposing his weaknesses. They didn't let him cut a promo, they just let him come out there and take out the Big Show right over the top rope. We had a good match between Ambrose and Bad News Barrett. They actually let Ambrose win. What a concept. I love the way Ambrose sells his injuries. He's still selling that knee injury that happened in the ambulance match with Bray Wyatt. That's just good storytelling. More guys should take note of that. Then we would see a match between The New Day and Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. I really don't get the New Day gimmick. I think they could have done something better with those guys. But it is what it is. This was the first segment that I felt like was just average. Everything else up to this point was out of the ballpark. The New Day picks up the win in this match. We then had a very entertaining segment between members of the NWO, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, X-Pac, or Six-Pac in the NWO, and the Ascension came out, and they did not have flattering things to say about the NWO guys, which led to JBL getting up, removing his suit, and having on an APA shirt, and bringing out, damn, that's right, Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons came out with JBL, the APA, they get in the ring, we think everything's about to go down, but no, not yet. Here come the New Age Outlaws, Jesse James, Billy Gunn. They come out, and the Ascension gets theirs. And as a matter of fact, at the Royal Rumble Sunday, you'll be able to see the New Age Outlaws against the Ascension, so it'll be interesting to see how they get those Ascension guys over, because we know the New Age Outlaws aren't going over in that match. They're going to build the new talent. We had a Tag Team Divas match next to set up the feud between Paige, Natalya, and the Bella Twins at the Royal Rumble. This match would see Paige and Natalya against Alicia Fox and Summer Rae, and Paige and Natalya pick up the win. We then got to see R-Truth back in action, although only for a few seconds as Rusev squashed him. Yes, that's right. R-Truth did not win. Rusev still undefeated. Still farthering the rivalry between the Usos and Miz and Mizdow, we had a one-on-one match between Jey Uso and The Miz, and Jey Uso picks up the win in this one. Should be an interesting tag team match for the championship at the Royal Rumble. This leads us to the main event and potentially the most exciting part of Raw. John Cena in a handicap match against Seth Rollins, The Big Show, and Kane. If Cena wins, he gets the jobs back of Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, and Ryback. If Cena loses, he's out of the championship match at Royal Rumble, and it will be a one-on-one match between Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins. As usual, we have the Authority around the ringside just to make sure everything's nice and fair. Let's just fast forward to the end of this match, where it looks like John Cena is down and out, about to get the curb stomp from Seth Rollins. And what comes on the Titantron? What does the crowd start screaming about? The second appearance of the Icon, Sting. He's standing there, watching over all the chaos that's happening in the WWE ring. And then he comes out on the ramp. And that's just the distraction that John Cena needed to roll up Seth Rollins, get the pinfall, and bring back his buddies that got fired. This sends Triple H into a rage. He tears up the announcer's desk. He's screaming for Sting. The crowd wants Sting. Just a high moment. We figure we're about to fade to black, right? No. Here comes the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar, to lay waste to the Authority, taking out Kane, attacking Rollins, taking out the Big Show. Seth just barely managed to slide out from under the bottom rope and weasel run his way up the ramp. And that was a great piece of business, and you couldn't have wrote that any better to draw the tension between John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble this Sunday. There are so many different ways that this match can go, and it's truly exciting, and it doesn't feel predictable. I'm extremely excited to see which way the cards are going to fall. Let's run down the card for the Royal Rumble. In the pre-show, we're going to have the New Day versus Adam Rose, Tyson Kidd, and Cesaro. We're going to have the Ascension versus the New Age Outlaws. We're going to have Paige and Natalya against the Bella Twins in a Tag Team Divas match. We're going to have the Usos versus the Miz and Damien Mizdow for the WWE Tag Team Championships. We're going to have the WWE World Heavyweight Championship contended in a triple threat between the Beast, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Seth Rollins, the future of the WWE. Then we're going to have the Royal Rumble match itself. And who's going to win the Royal Rumble this year and go on to headline WrestleMania against whoever the WWE champion may be at that time? There's a few surprise entrants we could see in the WWE Royal Rumble this year. What about Randy Orton? He still hasn't made his TV return. Sheamus, perhaps? Rey Mysterio? Haven't seen much of him lately. He's been on injured reserve. Is he well? Who knows? The Dudley Boys, no longer under contract by TNA Impact Wrestling, they could make a surprise return. And of course, we're probably going to see some NXT up-and-comers. With all that being said, I think the two favorites on hand to win the Royal Rumble event are Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan. Which way are they going to go? When they see the crowd reaction, Will they change their decision like they did last year? Who knows? It's going to be an exciting pay-per-view this Sunday on WWE Network. You don't want to miss it. You guys in the UK and Ireland have the WWE Network now. How are you liking it? Is it everything you thought it would be? Was it worth the wait? This week's match of the week is the 1992 Royal Rumble, the match itself that would see Ric Flair come in at number 3 and outlast everyone else to win the vacated WWF World Heavyweight Championship. What better way to get pumped up about this Sunday's Royal Rumble than to see an epic Royal Rumble match with the Nature Boy? That's all the time we have for this week on the Pro Wrestling Podcast with Lee Burt. If you enjoy this podcast, subscribe down below on our YouTube page. Go like our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/The Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you really enjoy what we're doing, there's a PayPal donate button you can find, and throw us a little bit of cash to keep this thing afloat. Share the podcast with your friends, leave some comments, leave some feedback. Let's make this thing as interactive as possible. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week and bringing you the Royal Rumble results and all that's happening in the world of professional wrestling. Until we meet again, you guys have a great day. See you next week.